I am in my final semester of early childhood education at Mohawk College, and I'm currently residing in Hamilton, but I'm originally from the Kawartha Lakes. So I wanted to start off a little bit with what I consider my vision story. And so I was born with a genetic condition called cone dystrophy, which has essentially left me with 10% of my vision left. Now, this has been the only thing that I have known my entire life. I am very lucky that it has been stable and the same throughout. I know for a lot of people that's not the case with their vision loss. It can happen later in life at any point, and it can vary where it gets better and it gets worse, and that can be very tough for some people. So I am incredibly thankful that while it is only 10%, it is a 10% that I am thankful for. And this has also caused me to have a lot of light sensitivity and no color vision. So you can often see me walking around with some super fun sunglasses to help with that. I always say it's like turning up the exposure if you think about it in a picture. So when I step outside in the sunlight, everything just gets really washed out and basically disappears. So when I was little, some of the first signs that I couldn't see like everybody else were that my eyes used to shake back and forth. Luckily, it was something that I grew out of, and they only do that now when I get really tired. And I used to actually shake my head to compensate for that. So I would sit there and I would walk around as a little kid with my head shaking back and forth. It's really funny if you watch videos with me when I was little. So a lot of my childhood was a lot of visits to the eye doctor, optometrist, ophthalmologist. I had to drive 3 hours to get to my eye doctor every like 3 months for a while. And then they would do tests and they would shine light in my eyes. And as somebody who's light sensitive, that's not an entirely great time. And for the majority of my life so far, they actually tried to get me to wear glasses, which I think in grade 10 or so, I really looked at myself and I was like, why am I wearing these? They're not doing anything. They're not helping. And that's often one of the first questions that I get from people are, oh, you wear sunglasses for the light, but do they have prescription? Like, do you wear normal glasses? And the answer is no, because they simply just don't correct what is wrong with my eyes. So there's actually a kind of malformation in my retina where I work with children, so I have the child kind of example for it, is that everybody else wanted a lot of ice cream, so this is what everybody else's look like, but I just wanted a lot of ice cream, so that's what mine look like. So, and I did grow up in a very rural community with very little access to supports. Like I said, I had to drive 3 hours to an eye doctor just to sit in the waiting room for another 3 hours and then drive 3 hours home. So I grew up in a very rural area with not a lot of resources. But the thing that I was most thankful for was teachers that I had. Now, I would get taken out of my normal classes to meet with vision teachers and had to be taught skills like typing or how to use a magnification software on my computer, which I actually use now. It's zoomed in about 3 times a lot, and I scroll across to read things. So I used to get taken out of class to learn specific things like that you maybe don't otherwise think of. You may not think about how you're going to cross the street because you just look both ways, there's no cars, and you go. But when you can't see, things like that become very difficult, where I have to listen to the traffic to know if there's cars coming, do I cross with the cars, is a car turning, and really learning to use your ears to figure out how to do simple life tasks. How do you cut an apple without chopping your finger off with it? Little things like that. And there was very specific teachers. So in school, they're called a vision itinerant teacher, and that would be the person who did things like typing. And then I also had an orientation and mobility instructor who taught me skills like how to use a white cane, or like I said, how to cross a street. And then there was also independent living skills instructors who teach you those things like how are you going to cut an apple without taking your finger with it, because we like to have 10 fingers. They're very important, especially when you view the world through touch. So learning to really rely on things like my ears and my hands and not so much my eyes, because they're not always the best source. So through things like this and the people that supported me throughout, and even regular teachers who did things like enlarge pieces of paper or send me documents electronically so that I could use my assistive technology to use them were so essential in my life. And I was so thankful that I did get to have access to those. However, I didn't realize really how on such a minimal scale it was. It wasn't until later in life that I got to go to somewhere like Toronto, Ontario, where honestly the world is your oyster. The amount of services and opportunities for an individual who is visually impaired, it was like 10 times the amount that I had ever received. So while I was so thankful for all of these things that I had gotten, it was just a tiny slice of the pie of the opportunities and resources that were out there that I got to experience later in life. And again, so thankful for that along the way. So a lot of the time I also didn't realize that I actually had vision loss. For the longest time, I actually thought that I was like every other kid in my class, except for the fact that when we played dodgeball, I would often get hit in the face, and I just thought that was life. I was like, well, you know what? I can't see it coming, and that's what it is. But I honestly didn't realize that other kids could see these things, and they could catch a ball without just having it hit them, and it would be fine. So understanding my disability was something that I really had to work towards, and honestly something that I wasn't taught until grade 9, which seems really late when you're like, 15 in grade 9? So I went the first 15 years of my life without understanding my disability, understanding what it meant. I didn't even know the name of my condition until grade 10. And understanding why I see the world the way that I do, understanding the biology of it and things like that. And believe it or not, Googling my condition in this case really allowed me to accept it. It was such a long process because for the longest time, like I said, I didn't realize that I saw the world in a different way as everybody else. So coming up and being able to understand the name of it, how do I tell other people that I have a disability? How are they going to react? How do I respond to that? Was a huge process for me. And I honestly did a lot of it in high school, which, like I said, when you've had it for 15 years, seems like a really long time. How did you go the first 15 years of your life not being able to experience the world fully? And a lot of it had to do with the fact that until high school, I had what was called an invisible disability. So because I was surrounded by teachers, educators, my parents, I was able to really heavily rely on them. So I didn't need to walk with my white cane everywhere because I could just hold my mom's hand, and she would walk me across the parking lot and, to a door. And then I would go inside where it was not as bright so I could see a little bit better. And then if I ran into something, I ran into something. It was just my life. I didn't need to go anywhere by myself. There was always people around to help. So theoretically, you could have walked up to me and never known that I couldn't have seen the way that you had. So therefore, as a kid, I didn't think that I saw the world any differently than people. And it wasn't until high school that, I want to go out with my friends for lunch, but what if I can't see a curb and I'm not going to hold on to my friends? That's weird. That doesn't seem socially acceptable. So that's when I started to realize that I had to make my disability visible. I had to start walking with a cane, and I had to start embracing that. So that I could live my life fully, so that I could have my independence. And I really saw a shift in the way that people viewed me. And for the first time that I started walking with my cane, I really felt so subconscious about it. I was like, people are looking at me now. People can visually see, this girl is blind. I need to give her more space. And let me tell you, sometimes it is great when cars automatically stop and let me cross the road regardless, versus trying to turn in front of me when I don't have my cane. There is a big difference, but all of a sudden I felt so subconscious about how people were looking at me. And one of the things that really helped with this is that I created my cane to be like me. So I actually have a pink white cane. So they're called white cane because the main part of them is white. And then there's actually red on the bottom, which distinguishes it. So where it is supposed to be red, I have pink tape on mine because while I can't see colors, I naturally drift towards pinks. So I just say that's my favorite color. And I added these little keychain that has an E on it for Emiliee and a little pom-pom, which actually just recently fell off and made me really sad. But I really made it unique and into my own. And I created this sort of connection with this assistive technology, in that it's not just a cane anymore. It's not just something that I have to think about grabbing. It's something that I automatically grab when I go out the door, and it becomes a part of me when I use it. And I really am able to be one with my cane, and I don't even think about using it anymore because I've used it every day and I've made it into something that is mine, and I just embrace it. I truly just embrace it. So what? You know that I can't see. Like I said, it has its perks. People just stop and give you all the space in the world and are so much kinder when they know that you can't see. And really learning to laugh about my disability, which sounds so weird to hear it, but I'm a firm believer that laughter is the best medicine. And one of the ways that I learned to accept my disability was making these so-called blind jokes, in that I would say, oh, I ran into this sign and everybody in Tim Hortons is looking at me now because I knocked it over and made a loud noise. And I was like, oh, well, just accepting the little things instead of making them into a big deal, and doing these sorts of things. And once I did that, and like I said, I had so many more resources and access to things in larger communities, I was really able to understand my disability, understand what it meant, understand how it impacted me, and how I was able to share that message with the world. So one of the things is that I turned my disability into a social media movement called True Faces, with my sister. And through that, I was able to share my own story, share stories of other people living with disabilities, and create a community for people who were in rural communities like I was, who maybe had access to a decent amount of resources, but didn't fully know the extent that they could be supported in. And so creating it online so that people could connect from all over the world. We have international engagement, and being able to connect with each other and create this community of people with disabilities who can share their stories like I just did with you, and how they overcame barriers, how they learned to walk with confidence, how they embraced this thing that seems to define them, and how do they make it their own? How do you be unique about it? And taking that and creating a community of individuals who are doing this and sharing them for people who are maybe newly diagnosed. Maybe they have a temporary disability, and being able to share that and turn it into kind of a business where we sell t-shirts that start conversations with people, and that sort of thing. And so I want to ask you this: before you had heard anything about me, or even now, what do you think that the word disability means? You can unmute, you can put it in the chat. When you think of a disability, what do you think of? Do you think of a person in a wheelchair? I'm super curious. Sorry, I'm just seeing the chat now.
Yeah, you are an inspiration, and I do really appreciate you sharing your experience and journey with this, because I, as a person that can see, never thought about these things. And even the idea of like having something so visible to other people like a cane, where now they're like seeing that, and then what self-conscious thoughts can come from that, like that was really eye-opening. But with regards to your question, I think for me, when I think of disability, I just think about things taking more time, and I like doing things quickly. So I'm kind of like, oh, it's going to take me like an extra 15 minutes to have to go and do this. Or like, maybe I need to like block off more room for like mistakes or things that are unexpected that go wrong or something. So just kind of keeping that flexibility, which for me with like a very structured schedule, I find really hard to do. So yeah, I can only imagine.
That's actually a perfect answer, because like I said, as a kid, I would run across the room, and if I ran into something, oh well. But once I started using my cane, I really had to slow down. I all of a sudden was like, oh, it's going to take me an extra 5 minutes to get to this place so that I can navigate the crowd, or, slowing down when you're approaching stairs because you don't want to fall down them.
Right.
And taking that step, and it does take longer, and accommodations are are absolutely something that I have utilized and had to advocate for on a daily basis. Yesterday when I showed up for my tech check for this, I was asked, do you need any accommodations? And it was so fulfilling for me to be like, thank you for considering this, because a lot of people don't. They don't consider that it might take you a longer time to log onto the call because I can only see like a fraction of my screen at any given moment. So yeah, that was perfect. Thank you for sharing. Okay, I'm not seeing anything else in the chat. So
I have an answer for that one too.
Oh, go for it.
So what does disability mean to me? Because for me, I do have chronic illnesses, so I do understand sometimes the need for accommodations. And I remember in university there was a presentation from the disability department in our school, and it really stuck with me because she said that I'm paraphrasing, the definition of disability is someone in an environment that is not suitable to them. Because if you put someone with a disability in an environment where it is suitable to them, then the barriers are so few that it's so much easier.
That is like, I love that definition. I love that. I literally can't even word it better than that. Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that a lot of people hear the word disability and think about it in that 3 letters at the beginning, that context, that disability. This word is saying that you do not have the ability to do something else. You don't have the ability to see. And okay, yeah, that may be true. But let's take away the negative context. Let's put it in that sense of you're in an environment that doesn't work for you. You're in a space that isn't functioning in the best way that you can. And people often assume that the word disability is a bad word. And we have tried, or often it's able-bodied people who try to reconstruct this frame, and they'll be like, oh, you're differently abled, or I can't even remember some of the other terms because I don't use them.
Special requirements.
Special requirements, or your special needs, or whatever they're trying to use. And I think it's absolutely hilarious because just use the word disability. It's all about the social context that we've been putting it in. People so often are like, oh, but disability is a bad word. We want to be like, you're differently abled, like you can still do it. And yes, the truth is that often, like, we can still do things. It's just in a different way. And I still will tell people all the time, I'll be like, yeah, I'm disabled. And really think about the fact that it's not a bad word. It's all about how you view it. My disability has allowed me to be on a youth council and be a youth ambassador and a co-chair for 3 different organizations that represent the blind community. It is the reason that I won Miss Teen Personality Ontario. It is the reason that I competed on a national level for not 1, but 2 Paralympic sports, goalball and tandem cycling. And is the reason that I speak to you now and have spoken at national conferences, because my disability is who I am, and I don't let it define me. I let it empower me and just allow me to do the things that I want to do. And I've had so many incredible opportunities for it, and I am incredibly thankful for it because I've embraced it and allowed it to just be a part of who I am and not this additional thing that I'm worrying about. So I guess I would now like to open the floor to
Sheer has an answer as well. She just wrote
any questions. Perfect. You can share. You can ask questions. Like I said, no bad questions.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, so when you said that a disability is like doing something different, that really resonated with me because I actually struggled with a learning disability back in elementary school and in high school. And so to me, it was just, I learned differently than the rest of my class. So I didn't think of it as a disability or not being normal, or, you know, I just thought of it as I needed accommodations to level the playing field. And that was the phrase that all of my guidance counselors and teachers explained. They were like, we're just leveling the playing field. And that's really what I had to do in school. And it was hard for me just to do that in school. So you're so inspiring to be doing all of that in your whole life, like your whole lifestyle. And
Thank
it's
you
really
so much.
great. Yeah, no problem. It's really great that we can find these coping mechanisms to get through the day. So yeah, that's very empowering and inspiring.
Thanks for sharing. Okay, so like I said, I will open the floor if you have any questions for me. Like I said, no bad questions. People are always like, I don't know if it's appropriate to ask this. And I say, like, don't worry about it. I promise all are acceptable. I do believe there are bad ways to ask questions, but I believe that people are always good intent.
There's many that says in the chat, it makes me think of equity versus equality. One actually supports versus the other just giving everyone the same thing regardless of their situation.
Absolutely. I don't know if anybody else has seen the picture of the kids looking over the fence with the different stools. I constantly think about that in my day, and how, all the kids can be standing on the same stool, but only one or two of them can see over the fence, versus if you give the smallest one a larger stool and the tallest one a smaller stool, then now everybody can see over the fence, and you gave them different things, but everybody was still able to succeed, and everybody just needs different things sometimes.